Aurora Connects. This is season 2, episode 4 for Friday, September 4th, 2020, Fusion Theater Project. I'm Associate Artistic Director Dawn Monique Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Artistic Director Josh Costello. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Dawn, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good.
It's another Friday sheltered in place.
Another Friday and another hot weekend ahead, I understand.
I hear. Well, I won't delay any further. I have a quote for us, and I'll jump right in. This quote is from Tiger Style by Mike Liu. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just trying to respect your cultural expectations without letting it bury my personhood. So thanks for recognizing my personhood, creepy park walker guy. Oh, and my name's Albert, by the way. Albert? Not that you guys ever ask. That's a new one for me. You know, part of my job here at Aurora is literary management and reading scripts. And I loved Mike Liu's Teenage Dick, which I'm guessing you're familiar with.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to expose myself to a little bit more of his work, and came across this one in my monthly or quarterly subscription box from DPS.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, respect your cultural expectations without letting it bury my personhood. There's a lot packed into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So far, it's turning out to be a great play. Tiger Style by Mike Liu.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that, Dawn.
Yeah.
So tell us,
I'm just going to tell the viewers the same thing I tell them every week. Please follow along, comment in the chat box on YouTube, Facebook, like and subscribe. We always want to hear from you. The email is still the same, connects@auroratheater.org. Send in your questions, comments, folks you'd love to see on the show, quotes you'd love us to read from plays or poems or anything of that nature.
And Aurora Theater Company has a membership program in this new 2020-2021 season. We've mentioned it a lot on the show, and I'm going to say one more time, it is fantastic. We're adding new stuff, new benefits for our members all the time. So please check it out at auroratheater.org and purchase a membership so that you can participate in all of the programming that we have going. Dawn did her first August Wilson discussion, A Year with August. Every month she's taking us through the 10 plays in August Wilson's Century Cycle. That was fantastic. I had my first Center Stage Salon where I interviewed Margot Hall, and these are available only for our members. We also have an upcoming audio drama that we've commissioned from 3 local playwrights. So again, auroratheater.org, and while you're there, you can click the donate button on the top right if you'd like to help us get through this crazy, crazy year. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, today we are joined by some friends from the Fusion Theater Project. Audiences, of course, will be familiar with Michael Torres, who was in Importance of Being Earnest with us just last calendar year, but the season before last at Aurora Theater, which you directed, Josh.
Yeah.
And Michael is joined by Alejandro and Storm, members of a Fusion Theater Project. And we're so excited to have them on the show this Friday. Welcome, friends.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hey.
So let's jump right in. Who wants to take this first one? Maybe Michael. Tell us about the origins of Fusion Theater Project, how it came into being.
Sure. I started teaching at Laney College in Oakland in 2004. You know, I prior to that co-founded Campo Santo, in San Francisco, and we had a project called the Hybrid Project going on that we were all participating. But you were just talking about Margot and I were like handling the Campo Santo end of the Hybrid Project. And I thought going into a college, it's like, well, I'm going to have to I need to make this interesting, for me too, so that the students can be interesting. Right? I don't want to, as much as I like arsenic and old lace, I don't want to be in that vein. You know what I mean? So I kind of want to make things interesting for myself and working in the style of what would be the Hybrid Project. And I had met my wife, Jackie, around that time, and I was talking to her about it, and I was like, I can't keep calling it the hybrid. I can't call it the hybrid project because that's Camposanto. We're something else, but it's something to continue it, right? And then she came up with the name Fusion, and I was like, cool. So then, I went, okay, so we'll go with the Fusion Theater project, and we'll make it a project of Laney College Theater Arts Department. So kind of loved that idea. And then the next week, Gillette came out with the Fusion Razor. And then the week after that, Ford came out with the Fusion, car. And I was like, well, it's obvious it's a cool name. I mean,
you were tapped into the zeitgeist.
Right. Everyone's going Fusion. So one of the other reasons why that we wanted that it works for us at the college is that the first real Fusion project was a fusion of random stories that the creative writing classes were writing. And so there were two, one taught by Professor Weidenbach and the other my wife, Professor Graves. And we put them all together and edited them all together and came up with the Fusion show, the Fusion Project. And worked super, super well. And it was just all these stories written about random stories about Oakland that we kind of fused together. And then we kind of caught on to like, wow, it's really cool if we keep fusing on to like different elements, right? And then kind of keep it Oakland based. Tell Oakland stories. I spent most of my adult life in San Francisco, where we kind of borrowed a lot of stuff from Oakland and then said it was San Francisco, ooh. But, I was like, let's like make this, all about Oakland. And so the next show, I'm not going to go show by show, so don't worry about that. The next show was Midsummer Night's Dream. And I was like, well, how do we take Midsummer Night's Dream, right? Which is really different from doing a devised piece, and making it about Oakland. So we set it in 1960s Oakland, during all the revolutions and stuff, and the flower children, and the fairies were flower children, and then we kind of fused it into fairyland, and it ended up being pretty cool. And everything else afterwards, the Fusion Project sort of like took on a subcategory, which would have been the Community Voices Project, where we again did some devised work, sort of Anna Devere Smith stuff, but with many actors. And we came up with the Miss Education of Oakland, where we had interviewed teachers and parents and students, principals, board members and school board members, and came up with all these different stories about education in the primary, middle school, and high schools, and what's going on in there. It did really well. And then we were invited to play, and I can't remember the name of the gig, this gig in LA, where we were between things like the American Idol band and Michael Jackson's band. So, I'm on stage and I'm hearing Michael Jackson's bassist. Michael Jackson obviously wasn't there. Michael Jackson's like bassist, like doing Billie Jean. And we all, me too, we all just started screaming. It's like, oh my God. Right, well, we were doing it. And, everywhere we went, we were like in limos, and our limo had a stripper pole in it, and kids thought that was really kind of special. So we just stuck with the idea of like, whatever we do, it's got to be Oakland based.
Yeah. I love that. So it's not your typical college theater department. I want to ask Storm, when you enrolled in Laney College and got involved with the theater department, is this what you were expecting? Were you surprised? What was your experience joining the Fusion Theater Project?
Yeah, well, originally I was a computer science major at Laney, and when I decided to make the switch to the theater department, and I had performed before, but I really had no idea what to expect from Fusion. I thought we'd be working on classical plays or more popular modern plays. And part of me was a little nervous that, the art would feel like school, traditional ways you would learn theater. And so I was a little hesitant about that. But Fusion really feels like an extremely diverse community of artists. I think that coming from Oakland, which is a place that's experienced so much change and has made those of us who are from here kind of feel like they don't belong.
Mm.
It is really important to build a space to where young artists and students can feel included in the ways that I think Michael has, by allowing us and giving us like new plays to look at and workshopping those new plays with the playwrights, and offering us affordable tickets to see shows all the time. Like every week there's a new show, or there's something new to see and something new to experience, and being in the space is just half the battle. Finding a way to get into the space is half the battle. So he gives us that, which is an awesome opportunity, I think. And then there's the scholarship opportunity between Fusion and SF State that just gives us so many opportunities. Nothing that I would have expected from a community college theater department at all. And I don't know where I would find that kind of experience if not at a higher level university or art school.
That's great. And you ended up at SF State, right? You through this program.
Yes, I am this year's recipient of the Tony Weingarten Scholarship at SFSU. And I'm so grateful. I get to actually focus on school and focus on my art. Whereas, normally in my academic career, I would have had to figure out how to balance the full-time work schedule, and then how to like create enough creative space so that I can thrive in my studies and stay afloat. So this is a great opportunity for me to be able to just be an artist and focus on growing.
That's so wonderful. Alejandro, a similar question, how did you come to be a participant with Fusion Theater Project?
I was curious. I was actually already at San Francisco State, and I was a cinema major at the time, and I did some acting stuff for students' films, and I thought, this is kind of interesting. Let me take a semester off and see what this is all about. And that's when I stumbled onto the Fusion Theater Project. And it was not at all what I was expecting, because taking an acting class at San Francisco State felt very academic, which there's nothing wrong with that. But then shifting over to Michael's class, I think more than just acting, I really learned how to hustle, how to hold myself accountable for my work ethic, just owning my shit, making sure that if I want something, I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna work hard for it. So it's not just, you're gonna learn about theater. And I think Michael said it a couple times, you really learn a lot more about yourself more than anything.
That's great. So now I want to ask, like, what is the difference? I've been in a lot of college theater classes that I think are more on that academic side that you're describing. What happens in these classes that's so different? What goes on? How does he instill all this in you guys?
Yeah, I'll take that one first. I think it starts with the new plays. It starts with, we're going to do something that no one else has done before, and it's going to be hard because we have to figure it out. We have to be able to envision it for ourselves, and that can be mind-boggling, trying to go through the text and really envision it and then hold on to it and then put it together is really difficult through that process. And then I think the hustle part, I think, is really true. It's like he pushes us to keep going, and when we feel like we've got it, just remember that you don't, and just keep pushing harder. I think that's the big lesson that I've walked away in my experience with Fusion. Yeah.
It's so cool. Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Just to add to that, I've never read something more than 20 times. I've never done that. And then Michael makes us do that. And so that's part of the hustle, like really working hard. And I remember that doing auditions over there in San Francisco State, it reminds me that I didn't have theater classes in high school. The first time I did theater was when I was with Michael. So I see other students and they know all these techniques and acting styles. And all I had was hard work. All I have is locking myself in the garage and like really working those lines and doing everything that Michael taught us and making sure that, you know, we're time managing and we're making sure that we're actually looking at the language and really analyzing everything to a very fine degree. And so that shows, you know, it shows a lot more than talent. So hard work before talent.
Yeah, and I think one other thing that I do want to add is he pushes us to try and find ways to relate it back to us. And I don't think that that's something that I've experienced before. You know, we're not meant to fit a mold. And, you know, we are from Oakland and we are here and we are kids of color. And these are the roles that we're playing and let's make them our own. I think it's way more powerful than trying to fit the traditional narratives and trying to fit the, you know, normal, regular ways that we tend to tell stories. So I think that too can be really challenging because it's very different from what you're normally told to do. So you have to be really focused and then keep pushing yourself to make sure that you are uniquely your own. You're making your work unique to yourself. Yeah.
Michael, it sounds like your vision for the Fusion Theater Project and the department there at Laney really is a robust, complete with mentorship and sort of life skills and business acumen. I just wonder how you feel you're able to accomplish all this within this academic institution that's really designed to be a, you know, a 30 unit course of study. You know, it's not a 4-year or conservatory model.
Well, like it's kind of going back to what I was saying earlier. I had to keep it interesting for myself because I think that if you're going to teach people, you should teach them something that you're genuinely interested in, you know. And you know, I started the whole theater gig when I was 8 years old. You know, I got hit by the bug then, and it's just something that I really love it. You know, and I see the love in them, you know, for it. So I don't want to get all emotional because I heard them speak, but it's about, for me, it's like I'm not trying to teach them to be like the Meisner technique, you know, only, you know, or here's Stanislavski, you've got to master it, you know. One of my heroes is Bruce Lee, right? Who took all these styles and put them together. And he did that in Oakland, you know? And so I kind of took a lesson from someone who already did it before me. And I was like, well, what am I? You know, I'm a conglomerate of all my teachers and everybody that I've ever done any kind of art with, right? So that's who I am, and that's who they are. So it's about teaching them really not to be afraid of who they are, you know? And that, I mean, they're at least, I mean, some of them are 16 years old. That's about the youngest that I get, you know? But most of them are like 18, 19 years old. It's a long time to be alive, you know? It's about trusting that they already know more than what they think they know because they've already been exposed to everything, you know? And they're 18 years, that's enough to be exposed to everything, you know, and to trust yourself that you know so much more. So a lot of it is unlocking things, you know, in each individual, right? So that they have the confidence to be, you know, themselves, and then put that into their art, you know, and then how to find a relativity in these new scripts. And we love to use new scripts because traditionally, you know, you can read, I mean, Shakespeare, I mean, there's like 18 billion sites that you can go to research Shakespeare. You can listen to 18,000 audio, you know, and you can watch all the movies, and then you can kind of put all that together and like do something in class, right? And the same thing with so many other Ibsens that way. You can find about, you know, Jane Fonda, I mean, you can find all these like, you know, Ibsen shows and stuff, and you can find everything in pretty much that's like, you know, like 1970s and earlier. You can find like gobs and gobs of material on that. But when you get a new piece, like we just got done doing We Are Pussy Riot or Everything, Everything Else, GR? That's right, by Barbara Hammond, who came to see us. She came to lecture at the school, right? And she fell in love with us, and then she gave us the play, which was like super, right? And, but there was nothing really to research about another company having done it, right? And so it's like, well, you guys are gonna have to bust the code on this. We're gonna have to learn about Russia. We're gonna have to learn about, feminism in Russia. Does it exist? When did it exist? When did it stop? Who is Kirel? Who is Putin, right? Who are the Pussy Riot ladies? We actually met Nadia, Alejandro and Storm didn't, but a group of us got to spend an hour with Nadia Tolokonnikova, who at the time was, they don't really say leader, but quote unquote, leader of Pussy Riot. So we met her in San Francisco before a book signing thing. And we got to be there for an hour with her, and then we showed her the play and she looked at me and she's like, is it good? Am I funny? Right? And it was kind of a wonderful moment. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff that we're kind of working with. It's like, you got to bust the language yourself and learning the difference in acting styles, right? It's like some of those characters were constructs of Barbara's, conglomerate people that she interviewed, that she put in, and which then you're just going to you're going to act that, right? And then there's some characters that are Nadia Tolokonnikova. Now that's character work, okay? That's where you're going to you need to learn how to talk, walk, gesture like Nadia Tolokonnikova. And to me, that's character work, right? And it's different from diving in and putting yourself in a situation, which is that's acting to me. Storm had to play, both Alejandro and Storm were in the production, and they had to play characters. Because Storm had to be, she had to play Marilyn Monroe, right? In which I'm pretty sure she didn't think she'd ever be cast like Marilyn Monroe.
No.
And then I cast her.
It was awesome.
It was
fun, yeah.
cast as Marilyn Monroe, Madonna, and I'm pretty sure she didn't think she was going to play Madonna, right? And then Anna
Politkovskaya.
There you go. Who was a Russian reporter that was mysteriously, shot to death, murdered, right? In which they kind of think that that's associated to Putin and how Putin deals with reporters, because there's almost an entire graveyard of reporters that have been murdered, in Russia, because of things said. Putin owns most of the networks in Russia. There are rogue networks, and those are rather dangerous, and we're dangerous for the time. So we were learning these things.
I love how, it's so integrated that working on a new play, you have to learn so much about the world and about people and about what's going on. It's a fantastic model. And I feel like in many ways gives you a deeper understanding of things than just taking an academic class about it, because you have to really own it. You have to feel it.
And Josh, what I'd want to kind of chime in on what you were saying there is that's real education. It's hands-on. It's they were learning about the Kremlin, they learned about when the Soviet Union came to be, why the Soviet Union, came on, what was happening before, and then, post World War II, right? And that Russia actually won World War II, and how many people died during World War II. And, it was a lot of history. I didn't know it. I was brought up. I was brought up here in the Bay Area. I was told to not like the Russians, right? And that's kind of how we came up, and then duck under your tables,
right?
So I didn't know any of these things, and I learned a lot. And the learning of it made me sort of appreciate Russia, and also see that we're not that different, in the studying of these things, and especially now. We thought the play was relevant now.
Yeah, you think? Yeah.
Because somebody looks like they're copying somebody else an awful lot, but not being as well, I don't want to get into that.
I also love that another piece of this program is how much you are connecting your students with the theater community in the Bay Area. And you guys mentioned, going to see plays, that you would arrange tickets to go see plays. Aurora's been one of those theaters where you guys have come. I know you guys both came to see Michael Torres perform in our production of Importance of Being Earnest. And I'd love, there he is in Importance of Being Earnest. Thank you for sharing that photo, Amanda. We had so much fun on that show, Michael. But I'm curious if you guys could talk about the experience of what it's like to go and see a play at Aurora or at other companies. What Alejandro and Storm, would love to hear how that experience of seeing other theaters work has informed your education as a theater artist.
I've never seen plays before I met Michael once again. So just actually most kids, most young adults that live on Internet National and live in East Oakland don't watch plays. So like to have that opportunity to branch out and go to visit establishments you wouldn't normally visit, seeing entertainment that's not really at times targeted towards you, it's kind of eye-opening.
Yeah, for me, I'd seen a few shows here and there before, but going as often as we would, it's so interesting how you see sort of the same people coming in and you get to know the community. That was what was so interesting to me. It's like, I just saw you last month. Like, how are you being able to talk about theater with other people in the real world that aren't just in your class is also a great experience. And through our classroom, we have the know-how, the ability to talk about theater. We know terms and we've experienced certain things or different shows, and now we're able to engage with the theater world in that way. Yeah.
So cool.
We have some viewers that must be friends of some of you who are offering high praise. L Black, who works at Aurora in the building when we're able to be in the building, writes, "I'm so proud of these artists, having witnessed their work and their developing work ethic, gratitude." Patricia Miller sends so many good thoughts to you, Michael. And that she's looking forward to seeing you on this episode, and that she worked with you. She knew you when she was back working at Aurora in the education department. Michael Asbury writes, "Michael Torres is making a difference." Patricia writes, "I appreciate and share Michael's approach." So it seems like you are really having an impact in the community, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this Holy Fools that is kind of this extension of a Fusion Theater Project in a way for your former students to continue their passion for theater.
Yes, I just want to tag on to like what we were talking about, and that Fusion. They also receive. I got to say, because I'm a professor, what the state says they're supposed to receive. Okay, they get all that. Okay, one, obstacle tactic, line learning techniques and stuff. They get everything that the state says, but we go overboard. We just open up the floodgates and go, there's so much more to education than just that. So we do more, and I love it. So it's not like I feel like I'm doing more. I love it. I want them to love it. Now, the Holy Fools was, you care about your students, and you want to make sure there's a place, where sort of like a home base, right? Because they're going to go off and they're going to work in other theater companies too, but we wanted to create a home base, for them. And so we started to train. We took the word Holy Fools from We Are Pussy Riot or anything, because it's the Holy Fools that tell the story of We Are Pussy Riot, which is sort of like a ragtag, high comedy kind of commedia troupe, right? And so we took the name because we just thought the name was really great. And we were thinking, we can do that. I mean, Steppenwolf took Steppenwolf. Let's take the Holy Fools. So we went, let's do that. And so we decided to work on a play. So I thought, well, let's do a Russian play that people know, a comedy where we can kind of work with the fool's perspective of, the sort of commedia kind of style. So we chose The Bear by Chekhov, which lends itself to that. And it's, a battle of the sexes play, and it's only 30 minutes long. So I thought, well, that's a good start. So we started working on it, and we got all the way through the 20 reads, with it. And I thought, okay, we're going to go into radio production with it. And then The Fools, which is about 6 of them, they did, in which Alejandro and Storm are 2, okay, went, stop. What? We want to have a conversation with you. And okay. It's like, do we really have to do this? What? You just read it 20 times. We're committed. And they're like, yeah. And that was enough to know we don't want to do this right now, not because they didn't like it, but because they thought there was something more important. Right. And so, that was music, it's like, what are you thinking? You're a little nervous too, because you don't know what's going to come out of their mouth. So it's like, what's more important? They're like, well, we want to go back really to working on new plays. And we want to work on plays that tell the story of what's going on in our neighborhoods. Stories like those women that were, I guess you'd say, squatting in that house in Oakland that got kicked out, for because they weren't paying any kind of rent there. They were basically homeless and squatting, and that became like a big thing not too long ago. And we thought, we're not working on that story right now, but that kind of was like the reasoning. It's like there's so many Oakland stories that need to get told, right, in the way that we're learning through theater. So we started, and that was pretty much Alejandro got into that. Storm was, they were like, really heavy into the conversation, and I loved it. I was like, let's not do The Bear. Let's move forward in the direction that you want to move forward in, because it's your company. It's not my company. I'm not doing this for me. I've already had a company. It's yours. So, and you already made a huge decision, which I've got tons of respect for.
That's such a dream come true in a way for an educator to have the students say, you know what, we feel really strongly about this and we have our own ideas about it that we want to do. That's amazing.
We did something.
Yeah. Storm, you mentioned earlier something about feeling like Oakland has changed and is not as welcoming to the people who are from Oakland as it maybe used to be. And I'm wondering how that connects to that conversation that you guys had with Michael about wanting to tell stories that were more specific to the story of your neighborhoods. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Growing up in Oakland, I've seen the waves of gentrification and I've seen the change in the demographics, and I've experienced a lot of frustration and my own personal feelings towards that. And we were reading The Bear in the midst of everything happening with quarantine and with the BLM movement. And so while I love The Bear and I thought, that I would have wanted to move forward, I felt like I needed to be able to process what's happening in the world through my art and through theater. And so I was actually really excited I was nervous to pitch the idea that maybe we don't do the bear. But then Michael was like, okay. And we were like, okay, cool. Like, what are we gonna do first? It was a really awesome opportunity to be able to like speak up like that and to have our teacher and our mentor hear us and respond in the ways that we would have hoped him to. I think I personally am just invested in anything that functions to dismantle any kind of status quo or to rewrite any kind of narrative. So it's totally awesome to have a mentor who's ready to fight your battles with you and support you in what you want to do.
That's amazing.
So something that we started working on is that, Alejandro is presently at SF State now. So I'm ready to graduate. It's double major. It's like creative writing, Alejandro, and theater.
It's theater, English education, and minoring in cinema.
Okay, well, bink it a bunk. Okay, huge. This is really great. Okay, so I asked Alejandro to talk to playwriting department there, and he did. And we had a meeting with the playwriting, with the head of the playwriting, the MFA playwriting department at SF State, and we're going to meet with them again in a couple of weeks. What we're working on is like new plays and talking to the young playwrights there about what they're creating, and actually slowing our roll down from like, let's go to production to let's learn how to read new plays in a way that's beneficial to the young playwrights so that they can make adjustments. And then we will slowly progress into production. But first, let's learn how to read a new script. And they're taking what they trained with in Fusion, which is sonic training, right along with what the state wants, but sonically training, right? So they can kind of drop in to the scripts and how to read the punctuation and blah, blah, blah. So we want to take that and offer that to the SF Playhouse. Is like, we know that they've got students there that can do this also, and they've got great students, but we're saying we're a dedicated team of like 6, I think 7 now, because Priscilla's back, of doing just that. We'll read your plays, we'll spend weeks with them, and bust their codes and then read them so that you can hear them, meaning the playwrights, so they can make informed decisions as to like what's working, what's not working, questions we might have, that kind of like, after that happened, we attracted, I don't even know how we did this, TheaterWorks got attracted, and TheaterWorks had a meeting with me about Lisa Giulio, who runs their education department, who I went to state with, so both she and I were classmates, about TheaterWorks is developing a young playwrights, young playwright development organization, right? So they wanted us to kind of like chime in with that also. So we're talking. And then, Josh, you and I had a conversation, right? Which excited me to no end, because I didn't know, I just didn't know where it would go, right? And I just pitched the idea we were just talking about. It's like, what if, the Aurora, because the Aurora's, when we're back to being face-to-face and we all can be in the same room together, the Aurora is so easy, and the department they started watching shows like Detroit 67, a wrestling show that John had directed a while back. They still talk about that. And then of course, Earnest, so there's a big love for the Aurora in our department, and so I was like, I wonder if Josh would be interested in something like that. And then of course you were, developing young playwrights, right? And immediately there was the hookup into Berkeley High, right. Kind of talked about, and working with the young playwrights, telling their stories, through their lens, their perspective, right? And really giving it a pro treatment by having a dedicated team who just specializes in that, who will someday evolve into a production team. But first, let's really get intimate with the writing.
I love that so much. You told me about a metaphor you have for your work at Laney as being a tree, with Laney as sort of the main trunk of the tree, but then there's roots feeding into it, and then there's branches spreading out. Talk us through that.
Yeah. You're the first person other than my wife that I've ever kind of like talked to. It's like I was drawing it out, I was like, well, because I was looking at the Oakland tree, and I was like, this is a tree education. And I'm like, so why is it, what makes it a tree of education? And of course, you think about Eve and stuff like that. And I was like, that didn't fare too well. So I'm like, what, how does this work? And then I realized, well, okay, we're not the roots. The roots are someplace else. Okay. So I just had to admit that. But the college is the trunk. Something's happening in this trunk, right? And it's coming from, and the roots are the foundation for this trunk, right? And before we started working on the foundation or the roots, the trunk branched out. So you got these different branches, right? Which are relationships. So we have a relationship with the Magic Theater. So, which, as you know, the Magic brings plays to Laney for free for the community to come see, and then we go, we see their plays, their playwrights come talk to us. You and I have talked about doing similar things with the Aurora, which is nice. It's a beautiful thing, So there's the Magic branch, and then we've got the Shotgun branch, and then there's the Ubuntu, which is now the Oakland Theater Project branch. I'm so scared I'm going to forget somebody. And then there's Theater First, right? Which we have a branch out with Theater First, pretty much where there's where the new plays are happening. And then we've got our Aurora branch, and these branches are still growing. So, I was looking at the tree and I was like, I got a trunk and we've branched out, but this tree could topple over, because it's got shallow roots. I forget which tree has shallow roots and blows over really easily. But I'm like, this shit can blow over so easily. So I was like, what are the roots? And so then I thought, I got to get into the high schools, the middle schools, and the primary schools of Oakland, right? And I'm like, well, how do we do theater there? And I go, first thing is to develop at Laney, a touring theater company that would go to the schools, to do children's stories. Another thing would be to, so they become familiar with us. Another thing would be to develop, to first working backwards, the high schools. There's something like 15 high schools in Oakland, which is an incredible amount of high schools. And about 5 of them have existing theater programs. So going in and talking to the existing theater programs about, how much it's so much easier to transfer to a university coming to a community college than it is, doing all the testing and blah, 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 and going right out of high school into the universities. It's easier. Plus coming to Laney, like Storm said, it's like a liberal arts education, the way we're playing, right? And you get all these relationships with all the companies, right? There's so much, it's accelerated learning, at that point, So going to the high schools that have the existing programs and explaining this to them, right? Plus it's cheaper because you're paying community college prices, right? And then you get the community. It's not just me. That was another reason for doing it. I'm the only instructor there, right? So, and it just can't be my voice, right? They gotta hear that I'm not full of shit, that it's like, Josh is gonna say the same things, Loretta's, I know she's not there anymore, but Loretta's saying same stuff, so they can hear it, and maybe they hear it a little differently from you guys, but that's enough for it to click, which accelerates them, So that kind of accelerated learning is great. Now there's 10 other high schools that don't have existing theater programs in there. So I want to go talk to them about developing what's called concurrent enrollment. And for that, I'm going to take a sabbatical because that's going to take some time to get into the schools, talk to them about concurrent enrollment, show them how to enroll when they turn 16, 17, and then they can start coming to Laney to train there. So that by the time they're 18, they've got enough for an AA. As far as like the discipline goes, they'd still have to take their GE classes, but so they would already have that happening, by the time that happens. And so then we accelerate those students. And then I thought, well, okay, what about the middle schools? And that's where I'm thinking about like Storm and Alejandro and the Holy Fools, and my fusion team, about talking to a former Fusionero, her name's Kristen, who has existing after school programs in Oakland, and how to develop and how to teach. Basically, really to create an experimental class in my department that would teach how to teach after school programs, and then set these after school programs at the primary schools, right? And in the middle schools. And like in the primary schools, it's like priming them for like new work would be sort of like, what are you studying? What book are you reading? And then sort of like maybe even word for wording, the readers that they're working on, right? And lifting them up and mounting and taking them from one dimension into three as a show. And an after school program, which would deepen their reading skills at such a young age, because not only is it just intellectual, just reading it, they feel it, they hear it, right? They experience it. And so when they're working with their readers, they have a deeper understanding of what they're reading.
I love this because it sort of gives all students this other angle into their education. And for the students who have that like spark of passion and, for theater, who, it provides this pathway where that could take them all the way through high school and expose them to this, give them a reason to, a thing to keep coming back for, right? And then into community college and off to SF State. And then, the possibility of internships and entry-level positions at theaters, and having these relationships just makes that much more possible. It's just such a great plan. I'd love to get back to Alejandro and Storm a little bit. Alejandro, can you talk about your particular passion for theater a little bit more, and your plans? Where do you see yourself going? What's next for you? Where do you want to be as a theater artist in a few years? What's your next steps?
With so much going on right now with the two majors and the minor, it's kind of all over the place. But what I do envision is working on my acting. I'm graduating soon, working on just getting some gigs, and working with Michael to create that pipeline with high schools, and we're getting on the start of that. But yeah, hopefully start looking at some graduate programs, maybe 3-4 years from now, and then we'll see from there.
And what about for you, Storm?
Yeah, I'm a theater arts major and I'm minoring in communication studies as well. I'm hoping to get to grad school and get through that so that I can make steps towards having my own production company and focus on producing as well as acting and performing. But I would love to be able to create spaces for BIPOC artists who can have a safe space to collaborate and a safe space to tell the stories they want to tell so that they can be heard in the ways they want to be heard. So I'm looking forward to taking all the skills that I'm learning from Holy Fools and learning the hustle and respecting the hustle and, making my way to my own production company.
Michael, we have 2 questions from viewers. You talked a lot about creating a pipeline with schools that don't necessarily already have theater programs, but there is a question about whether or not Laney has a relationship with Oakland School for the Arts. And then we also have a question from Amanda, who's behind the scenes there, of how do we get technical theater kids involved? What kind of pathways do they have? Is there anything they can do fusion at Laney to build their skills? Is that something you're thinking about?
Yes. What was the first question?
Does Laney have a relationship with Oakland School for the Arts?
Oh, we don't have a direct relationship with OSA. That's where Storm's from. We don't have so we have a relationship that way. But we don't have we're not talking, not because we don't like each other, but because, we just haven't. Would love to have a relationship. That's one of the high schools or one of the schools, because it's more than high school. One of the schools that I want to talk about, right, as being part, possibly being part of our pipeline. So I would love to have a relationship with the School of the Arts. That's also, with all the high schools, but School of the Arts, yes, because there's such a strong focus, there at that school. So we would love to talk to them about hey, because I know a lot of their students will go to universities and stuff also, but it's hey, you know what? I mean, you could work. It's possible. We've had people work while they're still training. Carla Gallardo was in the Luis Alfaro play at the Magic Theater, and had a big part, while she was there. Lee Rhonda Davis is working. We've got people working out there, so it's possible for a student while they're still training to go out and work and develop their resume so that they could transfer to a top 2% school or a top 3% school, for not as long, because they would have already done their 2 years with us. So anyway, OSA, we would love to have a relationship with them. The doors are open. As far as production goes, Laney doesn't have a production department. Laney, we are looking, and I am working on developing a production department. The way that I'm thinking about doing it, okay, from our end, okay, there's two different angles that I'm working on here. The first one is okay, how do we do this ourselves, at the school? And I've discovered there's career education, which is usually there for the welding classes and HVAC and the building houses, carpentry, these departments, and it's that what they're saying is career education, which it is. And I'm thinking, well, Art, you go to work. You can go to work, okay? So it's career education too, right? It's not like you watch TV, right? There's a career. You go to the movies. There's a career. You go to theater. There's a career. They got magazines for us, right? It's there's periodicals, books, all kinds of stuff are written about us. We're a career, So I'm career education. So that would mean a non-credit. These would be non-credit classes, in which you can get a certificate, right? And so what I'm thinking is developing a production department, that first starts off with certificates. IATSE's already talked to us. And IATSE's saying, we don't have many people of color in the union. And what they said to Alejandro Acosta, who is pretty much the technical director at Laney, what Alejandro told me was that they would mainline. But I'm shit, we don't have that. So I was we got to develop it, right? So we're working on that through a certificate program, and you can take these classes over and over and over and over again. And what I love about it is you don't have to have the qualifications, according to what my dean told me. I have to have a master's, but teaching the certificate programs, you don't have to, right? We just have to have. You just have to be really good at what you do. Right, and then they would be under the auspices of the Laney College Theater Arts program, and then these artists would teach, and they would get paid. I think their pay is it's close to what a professor makes, which is pretty good. It's good, okay. Which does these things where it's it helps those production artists that are professionals, fatten up their salaries, keep the lights on, actually be able to go get some organics. We can help you do that, right? And then what happens with the community is that you can take those classes as many times as you want. I mean, you really only take it once to get the certificate, but you can repeat, right? And get better and better and better and better at it, right? In which then we can start to create levels.
Well, and then all your branches with these theater companies, I mean, I'm sure would love to create opportunities for students to come and help build sets and hang lights and get hands-on experience at a professional theater doing all this.
That's the second prong, which will probably be the first thing that we'll work on, because the certificate program is going to be tough. Yeah. There's so many hoops and things that you got to jump through. It's bureaucracy, and I'm still learning the language.
It's also amazing, Michael, and it's so great to talk to you all. And I'm afraid we're running out of time, so we've got to sort of move towards the end. But do you want to real quick tell us about the exciting construction project that might be happening at Laney right now?
Yes, but I want to say yes to what you just said about yes. I want to farm out the students to work on production in the various companies. I have to get what's called an MOU, or a memorandum of understanding from the school, which is kind of a contract, kind of not. It's just a thing of understanding so that everything's legal. So, but we can do that. And
let's talk.
That's very exciting. So we want to do that, okay, and build that way. Yeah, we have it's my first time talking about it publicly. We got a $21 million renovation of our theater. I mean, $21 million. It's kind of mind blowing. It took me 3 weeks to get over the number. I kept saying it out loud, right? So it's not like $1-2 million, which would have blew me away. It's like 20. What did I say? 23. I get mixed up between 21 and 23. I've said it too many.
$1 million here, $1 million there. Yeah.
That got right. And what's they're renovating the entire building, which also includes the theater space, which. I've sent you some of the pictures. It's gorgeous. We hired, when I mean we, the district and some of the faculty, and my dean, we, as a collective, we hired ELS, who is the company that did the Rhoda Theater next to you. So they're the ones that are doing that are the architects. Okay, and we just passed a level of their preliminary drawings to actually working drawings. Okay, and we get to put a theater lab up on the 3rd floor, which is super exciting to me, because being, one of the co-founders of Camposanto, I'm rather partial to small theater spaces. I like intimate theater, I mean, I can play on big theater. I like big theater, it takes a lot to project, right? I like the intimacy and the hybrid kind of acting style of filmic theatrical in the intimate theaters. That's my favorite. Okay, so that would be like a 40-seat house up there that has a green screen. It's got projection. It's all teched out. It's going to have this grid that drops, and then a catwalk. Not a catwalk, but this. I guess it's a catwalk because it's recessed up there, and you got to go up there to do the lights. So super, super, super cool stuff. And then the latest lighting equipment and sound equipment, so I feel blessed. It's going to take a couple of years. They got to find another space for us to play in, it's a swing space for us to play. So, we're beginning to talk about that while they do the construction work. So feeling rather blessed with that, and gotta love the district for staying on top of that money. And my dean and my school, for staying on top of that, and making it come true. I think it's 21. It's 21.
I'm really excited to hear that. I did theater classes. I did a little concurrent enrollment. I did theater classes at Laney a million years ago, so it's really exciting to hear that there's a renovation in the works to upgrade the facilities.
Yeah, some of us been there since the 70s.
Oh, Whoa. Well, as we head towards the end of this episode, we have begun weekly doing some shout outs and lifting up organizations and advocacy. And Josh reached out to you, Michael, for this week's organization, and you did provide him with chapter 510. So Josh is going to share a little bit about this organization.
Yeah, Chapter 510 and the Department of Make Believe. Michael suggested this to me, and I've checked them out, and they look amazing. Chapter 510 is a Made in Oakland Youth Writing and Publishing Center. Our teaching artists and volunteers work side by side with educators to provide a safe space and supportive community for young people ages 6 to 18 to bravely write. Our vision is that every young person in Oakland learns to write with confidence and joy. They are at chapter510.org. Michael, real quick, why did you suggest this organization?
Because my daughter just got hired there. She's the development manager. I can't remember if it's development manager. No, it's development management. That's how you say it. She was formerly the development manager at the Crucible, but the Crucible, COVID, they furloughed her and then they had to let her go. And then, but everything was going super, super, super well over there. And so they picked her up over at the 510, right? And she's having a blast, over there. And I remember Fusion did a co-production there with Ubuntu, which is now the Oakland Theater Project. We did Moss by Milton Ortiz, we were the second company in the United States to produce it, and we got to do it there at the Department of Make Believe. And wow. I just fell in love with the space. And when my daughter told me that she was going to be the development manager there, I'm like, wow, how cool are you? That's just a cool point. So small world, very cool world.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Michael and Alejandro and Storm. It's lovely to meet you. We're so glad that you joined us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
It's great to talk to you. We'd like to remind everybody real quick that memberships are on sale now for our 2020-2021 season. Please go to auroratheater.org. If you are already a member, you should have just gotten an email with information about completing your registration for our new member portal. So please check your email for that. And if you're not a member, please go to auroratheater.org and sign up today. You can also donate by clicking the donate button at the top right. Thank you so much.
And thank you for the viewers that chatted along with us today on Facebook and in YouTube. We're so grateful to have you. Other folks who might want to share a thought, please drop us an email at connects@auroratheater.org. Remember to like and subscribe and click for bell notifications if you want an alert when we're about to go live. I'm super excited about next week's episode. Josh will host me and my bestest friends in a Cal State East Bay, we're going to say Cal State Hayward, reunion. So we will have Craig Marker, Jeanette Pinley Marker, Marissa Kelty Muterspa, Courtney Flores, Jasmine Williams, all alum of Cal State, with me, also class of 2003, as we talk about life post Cal State, our work at Aurora, and with Impact Theaters. So please join us next week. And until then, thank you for staying connected. Good afternoon, everyone. Enjoy the weekend.